Overwatch 2 is a first-person shooter developed and published by Blizzard Entertainment. However, this isn't the same Blizzard that I grew up with. Back in the ancient times, Blizzard was known for how they crafted games to absolute perfection. Games like StarCraft, Diablo 2, World of Warcraft are their legacy. These games were masterpieces in their own genres, and that's why when people heard Blizzard was finally going to make an FPS games, people lost their minds. Jeff Kaplan was leading the charge for Overwatch. He started as a QA tester on Warcraft 3, and eventually became known as a player versus environmental quest designer, as well as an aesthetic designer for dungeons and raids on World of Warcraft. And we are talking about the original World of Warcraft, Burning Crusade, and the Lich King. You know, the games that took the world by storm and had over 12 million subscribers in 2010? Yeah, he was a big designer in those games. Jeff eventually started working on an FPS project called Titan that was ultimately cancelled, but the remaining members of this Team Titan started working on a new game, where Jeff was the lead game designer and game director, and that game was Overwatch. His goal with Overwatch 1 was to make a highly stylized team-based shooter set in the near future with a diverse cast of extraordinary characters in an epic, globe-spanning conflict, and he told his team to just make it awesome. And honestly, I think Overwatch 1 kind of accomplished that. Overwatch 1 ended up being a huge success, and the game I felt was super fun to play casually with friends, and while it did have a loot box system, it didn't feel like it was unfair or forcing you to shell out cash in order to look tricked out. During the development of Overwatch 1 though, Blizzard was bought out by Activision, and for you rock dwellers who don't know what that means the Big Daddy Call of Duty guys bought them. And at the time, this frightened people, because they were worried that the quality of Blizzard would wither away over time, and honestly, I feel like it kind of has. There are rumors that the reason the loot boxes were even introduced in the game is because Activision heavily pushed it, but I really couldn't find anything that supported this, but I don't really doubt that at all, to be honest. I never really did mind the loot boxes too much in Overwatch 1. Sure, they were filled with some junk a lot of the time, like sprays and character icons and voice lines, but you would randomly get skins every now and then, and that would sometimes incline you to play a hero that you've never really tried before. Jeff, having the talent of being a player versus environment quest designer, had always hoped that Overwatch would have player versus environment elements from the very beginning of the game. The player versus environment content never really happened much in Overwatch 1, outside of a few random co-op events that were occasionally dropped in the game, but they were never consistently able to be selected. The original plan for Overwatch 2 is that it would have a bigger player versus environment focus, since Overwatch 1 had already built the bones of PvP. Unfortunately, in April 2021, Jeff had left Blizzard, citing that corporate culture issues were the cause of him wanting to leave the company. This caused a delay in the game, and then a little under a year later, January 2022, Microsoft had purchased Activision Blizzard, making most people feel that Overwatch has now been put in a gaming purgatory. Now, the reason I bring this up is because Overwatch 1 seemed to be a passion project for Jeff. Sure, it had been slightly tarnished by having the presence of loot boxes and new company owners, but it was always a solid game, and it blew the world up with its esports presence, and it also kind of created a whole new genre of adult content on hub sites. The thing was, he was always passionate about quest design, and he always had this dream of bringing player versus environment elements into Overwatch. I mean, that was his strong suit, but now the captain has abandoned the ship. What happened with Overwatch 2 without a captain to guide it? Who was going to protect his crew? Overwatch 2 ended up releasing on October 4th, 2022. With much delay and anticipation, the first few days it's been really hard to even get into a game, as server queues were extremely long, and allegedly they were having DDoS attacks that were kicking most people who got in out of the game. I actually had never gotten in on PC yet, but I was actually getting in pretty consistently on console, but I would get kicked out frequently. There was also an issue with the account merger process where it wasn't working right, so people were temporarily losing some skins, gold weapons, and other items they earned. In some cases, even characters. I was actually one of the people affected by this, but while disappointing, I didn't really care too much. I just would rather have them fix the server issues than worried about me looking good while teabagging a healer. Honestly though, I'm not really going to fault them for this. This happens with every big multiplayer game at launch. It's pretty common that they regularly get DDoS attacked when they release new expansions in World of Warcraft, so it's really not surprising it happened with this game as well. I mean, they do have a lot of bad PR these days, given that they are owned by Activision. Sure, they can always get more servers, but the DDoS attacks, even though you can put up more protections, ultimately they're just going to see it as a challenge and going to do the best they can to crack in anyways. What I will hold them responsible for is the state of the game. Many people have been saying this is Overwatch 1.5, and I sort of agree with that opinion. This game definitely feels more like a massive expansion to something that would happen to World of Warcraft or even Destiny, but even more of a watered down version of that. To add a little insult to injury, if you didn't already own Overwatch 1, you're going to have to unlock almost all the heroes. The argument they had for this was that they didn't want players to feel overwhelmed, and they wanted to slowly introduce them to the characters. But players aren't dumb, and they should just be allowed to pick a character they think looks cool, try it, and figure it out. I will say that the game does look better, and the new characters are pretty fun, and so are the maps, but before I get into too much on this new gameplay, let's talk about the gorilla in the room. The Battle Pass. Allegedly, Battle Passes are now requirements for any shooter that comes out of this company, given the sheer amount of money that Call of Duty makes for having one, so they figure just slap it on every shooter now, and cash is just going to roll on in. Honestly, I'm not terribly familiar with the Call of Duty Battle Pass, as I don't really play those games much anymore. I might randomly play it on free weekends or jump into a beta every now and then, so I'm not terribly familiar with their model, but I am familiar with the Battle Pass and the likes of Dead by Daylight and some other games. And that being said, things in this Battle Pass do feel a little rough. You get the XP for the Battle Pass really slow, and the rewards are kind of not worth it. Loot boxes were annoying when you would always get sprays and icons and voice lines, but now they've added new fluff items like keychains and player cards. There are two things, though, that I find really offensive with this Battle Pass, besides how slow the grind is. The first thing is that you don't even earn currency in this Battle Pass. So once you buy it for $10 and you work all the way through it, you're not guaranteed in the next one. A lot of other games' Battle Passes let you earn the in-game currency through the Battle Pass if you have the premium version, meaning if you get like halfway through or 3/4 way through, you're going to be able to get the next one, which is pretty nice. But this game doesn't seem to have that. And the second point, which I find a bit more offensive, is you don't even unlock the final reward in the free model. This game puts a mythic skin at the end of the grind. Most battle passes I've seen, you will always get the Big Daddy reward at the end, regardless of whether you have the free or premium version of the pass, because it's just such a long grind that they figure, hey, here's your pittance. But this game doesn't do that, and it feels a bit like a slap in the face. I mean, what's the point of even playing all the way through? So you can get that hot garbage display card? No thanks. It does seem like you have to do more than just play the game casually in order to get through the grind, though. They have tons of challenges. They have dailies, weeklies, seasonals, all kinds of challenges, and some of them are oddly specific. There was one where you have to kill people on a certain balcony on a certain map. That just seems hyper specific. Also, on PC anyways, they throw the store at you. There are two types of currency you can buy, one being the coins and the second being the Overwatch League tokens, but you can get the tokens just by watching the live streams. Other than outright purchasing the coins, the only way to get them is by doing your weekly quests, but you're capped at 60. Now, roughly 100 coins equals $1. So each legendary skin is 2,000 coins, which means each legendary skin is about $20. And somebody did the math on Reddit, and in order to unlock a legendary skin via weekly challenges, you're going to have to play and grind and do your weeklies weekly for 8 months. And the worst part is, a lot of the items in the store just seem very unfairly priced. They also seem to be doing the department store tactic where they say, oh, this skin is 2,900 coins, but we're doing a sale, so right now it's 20. So please don't fall for this. They also have a weekly rotating store to give you that fear of missing out so you can get better deals, but even there, it just doesn't seem worth it and the prices are overinflated. And I get it, it's all just cosmetic and you don't have to buy any of this. But players like getting rewards and they like looking cool, and they have so much old content in the game that they could just keep casually throwing it at you, no problem, and make you feel rewarded, instead of just pricing it all out with silly numbers, or forcing you to go on a long grind for rewards that aren't even worth it, like keychains. I get that they're now using a free-to-play model, so they need to have a revenue-making system based off an economy. I feel if they gave out more lesser skins for free, people would be more inclined to spend more money on the bigger, fancier skins. Because the game's being generous, thus people want to be generous. Because right now it kind of feels like we're being a little nickel and dimed. I mean, it's $1 for a player icon. They should be like 50 cents at best. So I feel like I've bashed this battle pass enough right now, just like how you're going to bash that subscribe and like button. But let's talk about the gameplay now. So the gameplay is just Overwatch 1, however I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing because I do think Overwatch is a really fun game. That being said, they did change it to where you only have one super tank now, so you have a team of 5 instead of a team of 6. This also means that when you play free pick games, it seems like the team with more tanks tends to win. I really think they should have overtuned the healers instead and then given you one healer. Since one of the healers always seems to pretend that they're DPS anyways, doing this would have allowed you to still have flanking tanks in the game. However, it would have caused you to not have a pocket healer with them. It means if a tank's going to go flank and the healer goes with them, the main group wouldn't have a healer. This would have made the game a little more risk and reward. The argument for this would be that people are just going to healer dive more, but I feel like if you tune them up more, gave them more survivability and mobility tricks, then it might not be too bad. But hey, I'm not a game designer, and these are just my early impressions in the first few days. So this is the part of the review where I would love to talk about all the new PvE elements that they added into the game and what's going on with the story. However, that's not here because it's not out yet, and this is why it feels much more like an Overwatch 1.5. The group I play with was way more ecstatic about them adding player versus environment content into the game because it'd be something new and fresh and hopefully deep that would really make it feel like it was worthy of the 2 title, but right now it's just not there and it feels like an expansion to the player versus player content only. Despite all of this, I am really having a lot of fun playing casually with my friends though, and since it is free now, I probably would actually recommend this, picking it up for casual fun or just to turn your brain off at the end of a long day game. But I don't really see myself motivated to be playing enough to warrant a Battle Pass purchase, and even if I did, it would still take a long time to get through it, and I don't know if I want to invest that much time in this game. I do, however, still want to see the PvE content and go through that, but hey, that's just my opinion, and only yours matters, so have fun everyone.